Hello and welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people. It's good to be
I'm
back.
Emily.
Hi, Emily. I'm KristaLyn.
Nice to see you. Oh,
Great to see you.
we have returned. We are back from Egypt, and holy shit, was that the most amazing trip of all time?
I literally have been walking. So we got these cartouches. If you're watching on the video, I'm waving around my new cartouche, just holding on to it because it's proof that that happened. Like I
I know.
didn't dream that. Wow. I mean, our trips are always super magical. And I think this time, because you and I are feeling so comfortable in the way that we present the trips and in what we were able to
Mhm.
do, the fact that we were able to make this one a sort of a spirituality 201
Yeah.
rather than a 101, it flowed so much better because everybody on this trip was on the same wavelength from the moment we all got there. It felt like we knew everybody forever. And it was so nice to hear by the end of the trip that they all felt the same way too. So there was
Yes.
just no awkwardness at all the whole time. It was 100% authenticity, 100% activation, as
Mhm.
Egypt does. Can't wait to go
Everyone
back.
had at least one experience where stuff was not only did they see stuff or feel stuff or heal, like they were every
Mhm.
single person had at least one like very deeply activating, like life-changing experience in the space, which is such an honor to be able to like hold that for people and witness that with people and help validate things for them and then validate things for us. Like it was truly beautiful and like really amazing. And there's a million things we're going to talk about, a lot of them on the podcast today. I do just want to say though, um, we go into this thinking all Trova trips are going to be like that. Like the whole company, it has this experience with everyone.
Yeah.
And that turns out that that's like deeply not the case, which we learned on this
Yes.
trip too.
So
That it
weird.
is actually an us thing, like us holding the space and us calling in the right people and us doing the energy thing, like not trying to be in any way like bragging on us or anything, but our host was like, I've done a ton of these Trova trips. None of them are like this. This is a you guys thing that you're holding this space for. We had another person who's like, my friend went on a Trova trip with this other person, and he did not have the same energy and experience. And like Trova Trip is a company, beautiful, love them. I think they host really
Very.
valuable experiences, but I just feel so deeply honored to get to create or be such an integral part of creating this experience for people that otherwise I don't think anyone would ever have. And it's just, you can go to these places and then you can go to these places with a group of spiritual people that truly deeply understand you. And the difference is incredibly profound.
Mhm. I'm just so grateful to be some kind of that we get to be at this energetic point, this energetic confluence of such incredible, amazing people that they then get to meet each other and prove that there are these amazing, incredible people out there and that they are one of them. That you are part of this group, and the fact that you're here and you can obviously see how incredible everybody else in the group is, that's because they are you and you're with them, and like you match that pitch. And like I just hope that everybody on the trip recognizes that it was an equal across the board. Everybody was so magical. And the blessing that we have is being able to be this little anchor that somehow draws everybody in so that they can find each other and we get to be a part of it. Like, I'm done. This is what I want to do with my life.
100%. And like some things like that you get to say out loud after the trip. Like I did that, like we did an activation in the center of a temple space in Luxor. Like in the Luxor temple, we did got to do a group activation and like activate things for people. And like it just like the mind-boggling things that get to happen because we're together and what we draw in because we're together and the magic that gets created because we're together is just it's so cool. It's one of the most like it's one of those experiences that you're like, if I could craft a perfect experience that would like make me feel so fulfilled, that would be everything that I could possibly dream it of, it would be this. And I'm like not even exaggerating it. Like there was multiple times when both of us were crying because we were just like, what is like, how is this? And multiple people on the trip just kept coming up to each other like, we're in Egypt. This is amazing. That's all you can say. It's just like, I know.
We were climbing up to the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza. And so
Mhm.
some of us went into the Great Pyramid and some of us didn't. It was a cramped, sweaty, hot, long
Yeah.
hike of space. So it was one of those things that's like, if you're up for a hike, do this. And if you don't mind being like breathing in each other's sweat a little bit, like that was the first thing we did as a group on this trip. And I felt like we bonded immediately. Um, but we're like crawling up, you had to be bent in half and you're crawling up the banister as other people are coming down and there's just not space for it. You have to be bent in half, crawling up. And it's like, guys, we're in the Great Pyramid of Giza. I know we're like holding on for dear life right now, and it stinks. It's like, we're in this humidity and whatever, but this is the pyramid. And it made so much sense when our incredible guide, Hani, explained later that the pyramid was built sort of from the inside out, that they would put stuff in place and then build around it, because ain't no way people were carrying stuff up and down those steps. I'm sorry, I
No.
don't care how short they were back then or whatever. There was no way. That
Which,
was
by the
only
way, definitions of short kings. Like you look at the statues in person and you're like, it was a short person. Like that person was tiny as fuck. Like that's a big statue, but that is a tiny human.
that is yeah. Even the proportions where Hani had mentioned that one of the statues had been buried because the king didn't like how fat his one thigh was. But it's like you look at the rest of them, the proportions were the larger bottom kind of uh
Uh-huh.
figures.
Very short people until we get
Yeah.
to like Hatshepsut's temple. Then she's kind of like taller. But before
I
then,
wonder how
everybody's just like
that.
squat, squat little guys, statues of them, but very squat,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Love
is really funny. I will say, so we can talk about, I want us to talk about each of our days because we did such cool things each day. And I feel like there's value in that. We just need to talk about Hani for a second.
you.
Um, I will never go to Egypt without him guiding me. And it's not even because I'm afraid to go to Egypt or anything like that. It's not that at all. It's he embellished the experience and made it so much deeper and richer and more expansive and magical and loving than any I could have ever imagined a person would do. Truly.
He he did feel like a brother
Uh-huh.
by the I had the incredible fortune to be able to meet with Hani before the trip officially started, what before people like arrived at the hotel. And we had messaged Hani before because flights were not going to let us all meet at the same time. Typically, Em and I both meet with the guide and get on the same page and strategize and make sure that they know that we are their team and, just do
Yeah.
everything we can to make the trip really beneficial for everybody and hold incredible space with teamwork. M's flight was delayed because of a tree.
Which, by the way, I think part of the reason the tree fell was so that you could have this conversation with Hani without me. I think that was a big part of it.
He
So,
seemed to really enjoy that conversation. It seemed like something that, he got to have a lot of giddy energy in, and I'm really glad that I was able to be there for that because it was a great introduction. As soon as we saw each other, it was like, "Hey!" and like big hugs. And I don't know how, because I'm not usually like I'm a selective hugger. I'm very careful with the energy that I let into my space. But we had been texting Honey the day before saying, "Hey, we really want to prioritize any spiritual locations that you can simply point out for us anywhere." And then we were going to take over from there. We were going to like go stand in that spot, let M do an activation or go stand in that spot. Can we
yeah.
find anything that correlates with astrology or magic or whatever? And Hani was all in and happened to know everything. The cool thing about Egypt is they are so nurturing of their tourism because it is their primary economy, that their guides are Egyptologists, they are archaeologists, and they
Mhm.
have been doing this for a long time before they are qualified to be a guide for tourists.
Right.
Like we think of that as something like that you don't need a lot of experience for, but they train for this. And
Yeah.
so Hani came so prepared, but he doesn't get to talk, or it seemed like didn't get to talk about that side of things as much as he would have liked. And at one point, he was like, "I feel like I do these things too, and I wasn't trained, but I feel like I can do this." And at one point, he was talking to me, and you'll understand this, Em. His face did this thing where his eyes kind of glanced to the side and his face totally relaxed, and he was talking, and it was just coming almost straight out of him. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
"That's channeled at me right now." And he was like, "What?" And I'm like, "I know channeling when I see it. You were just channeling." And he's like, "You could tell?" And I'm like, "Did you feel like that was coming from something outside of yourself?" "Well, yeah." And I'm like, that was channeling. That's what you just did. I watched you do it." So there was
Yes.
validation for Honey. Thank God we were able to reciprocate some of the amazingness that he brought to our experience. But we talked for like 4 hours before people showed up.
Yeah.
And that's
He fully embraced it and he said repeatedly how much he loved the group and loved the trip and loved everything about it and loved that he also got to do this spiritual thing because he doesn't usually get to do that, and said over and over and over again about how he's so honored that we hold this space and do groups like this because it's not just a fun adventure, it's like people need this, and how he knows it. He does all these tours and he sees how much it's different because people need what we do. And it was just like, it was so kind. And the amount, like he said that that conversation was one of the best conversations of his life. Like he told me that about your guys' conversation, and just he was just amazing. And he also added things to the itinerary that we didn't know, like that he was going to do. So he added a culture stop every day of the trip. We stopped at a different family owned business that was like sanctioned by the government and everything, to understand how they make a lot of things in Egypt. So we stopped at a papyrus shop and watched her make papyrus and learned about papyrus, which was wild, by the
Like
way,
how to
which
spot a
was,
fake, which was
uh-huh.
hugely valuable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How to spot a fake, and papyrus is erasable and washable and all these different things that you're like, what's the way? And then one day we stopped at an essential oil shop and we learned about how in the oasis out in the middle of the Sahara, they like bury their oils in the sand to let them sit for 6 months, which is the same practice that the ancient people did. And so they're pure and amazing and incredible. And one day we stopped at an alabaster store and watched them carve alabaster and basalt and their system and their process. And they explained it all to us. And then one day, and there's Sekhmet and Krista's holding up
Yeah.
Sekhmet
My
and a
example, green
basalt.
alabaster.
Um, and then one day was like the cartouche shop, the jewelry shop, and they also were like long time family owned, really beautiful. They made our cartouches for us, and Hani got it right to the point that one of them was messed up, and we got on the Nile on a boat ride. Another boat pulled up to us, and the jewelry delivery guy was on that boat and handed us the jewelry.
They literally tracked us down on a Nile cruise to make sure it was delivered on time. And Hani did this incredible thing where on the front, this is my name in the cartouche, but on the
Mm-hmm.
back are these sacred symbols that are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be spiritual and for protection. And he made sure that we were given the opportunity to have
Got the
those
right
too.
ones.
And
Yeah,
the quality is insane.
yeah.
Like this is
And then
it's
we
so
did.
tiny. It's
Right?
amazing.
And we did a bookstore, which was amazing. He took
That
us to
was
a
really
bookstore as a like a bonus. And like he added those things and he was like, hey, would you like to do a hot air balloon over the like Valley of the Kings? Would you like to do that? Does that sound fun? And we're all like, yes, we would like to do that. Let's add that to the itinerary. So we did that one day. Like it was just I cannot sing his praises enough. And we're so grateful that we were able to call in and connect with him specifically. And will every trip we ever do to Egypt, which we will do more to Egypt, coming soon on that, um, will truly be with him for sure. There's period.
People can try and stop us, but they will fail. We will make
I know.
sure we have honey. So for
At
future
one
future trips, if you want the amazing experience, we can guarantee it because honey is incredible.
It was so sweet because at one point he turned to us and it was just the three of us walking, Krista, myself, and Weston. He's like, I want to know you for my life. And we was like, "Dude."
We were
And
just
that
like,
was
you're
kind of
stuck with
funny.
us. It's okay.
But it was amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So so all that's aside, breaking it down by day. Really cool thing. We were there during Ramadan,
Mhm.
which was an amazing. I can't wait to go back during Ramadan again. It was a festival atmosphere. Everyone was so loving and giving. Nicest people I've ever met in
Oh my
the
gosh.
whole fucking world.
Watching a community support each other as they did as soon as the sun set and the call to prayer for the evening went off and the fast broke, people rushed the streets. And for anybody who was working at the time, there were
Mhm.
people ready with dates because you traditionally break your fast with 3 dates, as Muhammad did. And so
Mhm.
people were like holding dates up to the bus if we weren't somewhere where they could go and actually have dinner, which we tried to prioritize. I think there was like 2 days where we weren't back in time for them to go
Yeah,
break their fast with family and friends. But people are just like, have this. When we were on the way to the train,
my
they just
favorite.
bust out snacks everywhere and then started sharing with us. Like,
Yeah.
you've been fasting all day since the sun rose, and you want to share your breakfast with us. It
Yeah.
was insane. And I loved how it was like a little loophole because it was like a fig Newton filled with dates instead. So they
Uh-huh.
were breaking their fast with dates. It was, and it was
It
delicious.
it was so good and it was so cute because it was Honey who spoke English. Obviously, he was our guide. He also speaks German, by the way, and fully reads hieroglyphics.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
Incredible person. And then there was our security guard. We had a security guard every single day, thanks to Krista's talismans, which I thought was really cool. Um, but he didn't speak English basically at all. And then the bus driver, who also didn't speak English basically at all. And they're all breaking their fast with these cookies. And then the security guard turns to me, he's like,
Have these. I was like, really? Oh, so
like
great.
anything they handed me, I was like, I will eat it right now. Like anything,
Yeah,
like if you're sharing it with me, like I'm just gonna be honored and eat it. And so that was one of like I think one of my like treasured memories of life is just their
yeah.
face of here,
The
like have some cookies. And
generosity.
they're like shoving them in their mouth.
Yeah. The amount of generosity that they
Yeah.
showed was incredible. The amount of focus on charity and
Yeah.
offering to people. The fact that not only did Hani emphasize that as a lifestyle, as a requirement for their faith, but also that he organized and orchestrated an opportunity for us as a group to be able to donate to the people in need in Gaza. To the
Mhm.
fact that did he tell you it was his mom that
Yeah.
helped us coordinate that with the
Yeah.
laundry bags and all the stuff that we were able to then donate clothes and money and everything else to the people who are in need in Gaza. So we got
Yeah.
to contribute to that as well, which was very meaningful. As far as the talisman Em's mentioning, I made a talisman because we weren't sure necessarily what the conditions would be like there. We had for months, as you know, we'd been checking in for months and months and months and months. Is this responsible? Both with the people in Egypt, with Trova, with our intuitive tools, and with our guides. Like, is this responsible? Is it appropriate? Is it whatever? And it kept saying yes and yes and yes and yes and yes. And now we understand why. But as an addition to that, I did a way be clear talisman to not only protect us, but also to make the path clear to everybody getting whatever activations they needed. And for everybody joining us in Italy, I'm already looking into some kind of magic that I can do in preparation for that. I think I'm going to try to make that a thing on our trips
Mhm.
from now on. So hint, hint,
Yeah.
wink, wink, whatever.
Mhm.
But the talisman was really funny because Hani said like we may 1 or 2 days out of the trip have a security guard with us who is there to protect tourists because Egypt is very serious about the safety of their tourists, which is incredible too. And we had one literally every day. Literally every day.
And
I
even
didn't
Honey was like,
find
why is
it
this
wrong.
happening? Like, we
Yeah,
haven't. We were like, oh, that might be our fault.
that might be that's the problem. Yeah. Whoops. But it was
It was
clear.
really cool.
The way was clear.
I do want to say on the note of the Gaza refugees donations, it was everyone on the trip had the option. It wasn't required, but we intentionally brought stuff to donate. But we were not only, we thought we were just going to be allowed to kind of like give money because there's a lot of Gaza refugees and people trying to get out of Gaza. And we wanted to just give money to that directly to Hani because we knew he would take it to the right places. And he was like, well, you can also donate clothes. You can also do this. So I think almost every single person donated at least one item of clothing. We
I
had
had
like 4 bags of laundry that we were giving to him for the Gazan people. I gave him just like a handful of like all of the rest of my basically Egyptian pounds that I have, like threw that in there. Like we all just like everybody showed up and gave and it was beautiful. And he almost cried about it too. And it was a really cool thing. His mom organized it. Like it was just precious. It was just precious. And the reason I bring up Ramadan first is that first night we went to a dinner on a boat. Our hotel was right on the Nile, and it was party boats all night long because it was Ramadan, which was really cool. And then we went to dinner on a boat, and the dinner was all festival and colors, and also for Ramadan, which was amazing too. So we got to like experience that kind of like right off the bat. And then the next day we did like the big day, which is like the pyramids of Giza. And you were part of the group that went in. I was part of the group that did not go in. I am thoroughly thrilled with my choice, by the way.
yeah.
But we walked around and we found this like very sacred platform where I got like a vision of beings popping in and out. And then turns out that's exactly what it was, basically, that Hani explained later. And then we went and we rode the camels near the pyramids. We got to like ride camels all together as a group, which is another quick bonding experience. Loved riding a camel, by the way. I thought it was so fun. My camel took cameling very serious. But he
Mhm.
did let me love all over his face at the end. He was like, "You can pet me for as long as you want now." I'm like, "Okay." He pet him for a long time, but he took cameling very serious. And then we went to the Sphinx and like went through the Sphinx, the whole Sphinx compound, which was really interesting. A little highlight of that. Um, it was really cool because Hani was like, actually, the Sphinx project, like uncovering the Sphinx, was a gift from the American people to the people of Egypt, is how he said it. Which I loved that is how they view it instead of being like, yeah, the US government came in and did this thing. They were like, no, the American people did this for us. Like we have a friendship. This is a bond. And it was just like the kindest. Like it made me like kind of tear up, to be totally honest. It was really beautiful to hear that's like the way that it's viewed
Mhm.
was just like special and just honestly like precious. It was just precious. And then we went to the papyrus shop, and that was just a really cool experience. We got to see real papyrus and how it actually works and learn all about that. And every shop you go into, by the way, they give you drinks. They're like drinks, and so it's like hibiscus tea or black tea or Turkish coffee or whatever, and they just like make sure that you're always hydrated, even though it's Ramadan and none of them can drink anything. So but they're still just like drink, it's fine. Which is really cool. So that's like the first like initiation, like big day that we went through, and everyone immediately was so bonded, and then everyone had basically like dinner on the roof that night together. Um, and that was really cool. And that was like your classic touristy things. What Hani did though is he made sure we were early to everything. Every
Mhm.
single thing that we did, we were one of the first groups in. And it was so cool, which led up to the next day. We went to Zoser and Saqqara, which are like the step pyramids, like the first pyramids ever built in Egypt, essentially. And the first time, like, Nut was ever depicted as the sky goddess and all these different things. And we were the first group in like multiple places. So in the tomb of a princess, we were the first group and only group in there. And then when we went to inside one of the pyramids, which is Nut, the first like image of Nut and all of that, we were the first group in there. So we got to be in there literally by ourselves. And it was interesting. That was actually one of my favorite days. Was Zoser and Sakara because it was one of those days where I got so many downloads and pings all day long.
Yeah.
Like I immediately, from the moment we stepped on there, I was like, I just want to sing, and not even like words, just wanted to like tone and sing. And everything we went into, I was like, why do I feel this like pull to tone and sing? And it turns out it was like a toning healing center kind of behind the actual pyramids, which I didn't realize at the time. So I was picking up on like those residual energies, and you go in and there's a place where you can kind of learn if you have divine masculine or divine feminine in balance sort of energy, and then a place where the rhythms of the earth fix that for you. And it was a really cool thing. There were big guardians there, like big guardian spirits that we witnessed. And it was really cool. I loved that. I loved that part of the visit.
Doing a little mini group block pool
Mhm,
in
mhm,
the princess's tomb and having her show up during it
mhm,
was really cool because we were doing the group block pool for a couple
mhm.
people in the group who were still in there with the image of Newt for the first time.
Yep.
And you and I were both like, "Wait, do you feel her?" And it was like, "Yeah, I feel her. She's here." And that's so like, who can say that they did that? But we had this opportunity because we were there at the right time, because Hani took us the opposite way that he saw the other tour guides going, and it
Yeah.
was just incredible.
Yeah. We did a group block pull inside the Saqqara pyramid
Yeah.
alone. No one else was in the room. It was just in the middle of the pyramid. The sky goddess energies all around us. She's showing up to like bless the activation and block pull. And it was like five of us in there. And we just like group pulled it. And then we were all just kind of like, whoa, this was
We
wild.
we got to be unabashedly those people. And
It was
I just love it. And we got to be every day. And we did that in Greece as well. And we did that in Ireland where we had the opportunities. But it's just so cool that we get to do these things, to go to these sacred places, learn more about their deities, their theologies, their lore, and then feel their energy and tune into it and be a part of it timelessly for that moment. It's just the coolest thing.
it was amazing. And then that day we also went to Memphis, which was kind of like a little decompression
Mhm.
space for us a
Mhm.
little bit, which was
Special.
nice.
Yeah.
Um, and we got to all of this is out through villages, so we really got to see like Egyptian like village life too, which was honestly beautiful. The people were my favorite part of the whole trip, like being in that culture, and it was just beautiful. It was just really beautiful to witness like the modesty of it all, how they build their houses continuously forever because they build on new floors for every member of their family basically, and when you have a kid you build on another floor, and so it's all just gradual and communal and sacred. And
Their focus on family, their focus on equity
yeah.
is huge.
Oh my
Y'all,
gosh.
women are paid equally in Egypt. My phone just went off and everything. I'm just saying.
And
Hani was like,
educated
"Yeah,
equally.
of course they
Paid
are."
and educated
Yeah.
equally. They have better equality than we have here
Mhm.
by a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that he was like, "Well, of course, people are hired based upon their competency or skill set or whatever," and I'm like, "Huh, That's cool. That's
Mhm.
really cool. Cries
And
in
we
union.
mentioned, we're like, he was like, you get paid by the position you're in. And we're like, oh yeah, like in America, two people could be paid different things despite being hired at the same time in the same position with the same skill set, but one's a man, one's a woman. And he was like, well, don't you talk about it? And we're like, oh no, you're not allowed to do that or you get
You
fired.
get
And his face was just like, what?
yeah. Nope, it's a thing. Yeah, and their focus on education is so huge. I
Yeah.
loved hearing about that, and one of the amazing things we got to do was we actually got to have lunch with the family, and of course,
We
the
did.
family didn't participate, it was Ramadan, but they prepared a lunch that we were able to take part
Mhm.
of, and they talked about, their marriage practices and things like that. It's still a situation where the family and the parents are very involved in the
Mhm.
marriage, but it's in this case, the parents advocate for
Mhm.
their children in the marriage. Like, the mom
Yeah.
will protect the daughter or son of on the phone call with the other mom saying, "Yeah, not interested," or "Yes, we can try this again." And it's like the whole time they have a say. Um,
Mhm.
we got to, see a whole family
It
in
was cool.
their home and everything. And then um, that person came with us on the Nile cruise later that day. And so it was just, you felt like you were a part. You weren't on a trip just looking at as an outsider, you were immersed. And that's a huge thing for me.
We also got to go to this, like, on that same Sakara day, we went to this restaurant where they're playing music and they had the buffet and they served us all this food. And we're just like, okay, thank you. Before we got like whisked away to go to this shop to smell a bunch of oils. And they did this whole demonstration and they like put oil all over us basically. And not like all over us, like on our hands in different spots. You could smell, so you could feel the effects and like went through the healing and medicinal properties of this oil. And even our guy or security guard went and bought some of the oils. Like they use it all the time. And I'm like, that was cool. And then that night we took the sleeper train.
The sleeper train.
The sleeper train. Been on sleeper trains before. This one was a unique experience.
Yeah. I was on the sleeper train. I did not sleep in the sleeper train.
I
But
think
I
I
got
got
to do
maybe
it.
like an hour or two, like of like wink awake, wink asleep style of sleep. Um, the bed was about half my size. I'm a
Mhm.
tall person.
Yeah.
It was like half of me.
Yeah. I couldn't sleep in the next day was the equinox. So I decided to look at the condition of the year for Egypt, where I'd already done Americas. I wanted to look at Egypt's, and it was so refreshing to see such an optimistic chart for their
Mhm.
year coming up. Just to know that, like, we feel very fixated on our own circumstances sometimes. It was so nice to zoom out and be like, other places in the world are getting a rest, or other places in the world are seeing abundance on the horizon for themselves. And when I was able to share with Hani what my interpretation of the chart was, he was like, "Oh, that's already started." And I'm like, "Yes." A, my mentor is going to be so proud, but B, I'm so glad these good things are already coming for you. So that was
Was
amazing.
that too? We got off the sleeper train and immediately, so it actually wasn't the equinox that day. We thought it was. And
You
then we
thought
were
it
like,
was.
oh, it ended up
Okay.
being the next day, which ended up being way better, by the
Way
way.
better. Yeah, so what happened was Krista tried to do math. No, so the problem was that on the 19th in the US was the equinox. So I assumed that the 19th would also be the equinox in Egypt, but there's a date line. And so it was actually the 20th in Egypt by the time the equinox hit, when it was still the 19th in the US at the same time. So it was like 5 a.m. in Egypt on the 20th instead of 11 something p.m. in the US Eastern time. So
Yeah.
it was a little bit wonky, but we were in a hot air balloon for that. So we
Yeah.
got to see sunrise and sunset on the day of the equinox, both incredible ways.
It was super cool. Yeah. So the day we went to Karnak, so we got off the train basically and got whisked to Karnak like immediately, which like I did my makeup on the train. Like it was an experience on
Oh,
the
that
train.
was fun.
It was okay. My favorite part of the train, I couldn't stop laughing. The bathrooms, which first of all, disgusting, they're train bathrooms.
Yeah.
The window of the bathroom was you walk into this bathroom, there's water all over the ground. It's so loud. Like because you're flushing onto the track, right? Like it's like you're right there. It's so loud, it's rocking back and forth. The window of the bathroom says, enjoy your calming experience. Like, this is either a mistranslation or just like obscenely funny. And so every time I got back in the bathroom, I was like, ah, it's such a calming experience.
That is some serious manifesting attempts right there.
I walked past at one point I was walking past one of the people on our trip, Andrea, and she's like waiting for the bathroom and I'm like shaking and like tripping and I was like, enjoy your calming experience. And she died laughing and I died. It's just it's not. It
Oh,
wasn't. But we went to Karnak immediately and we got to see
yeah.
sunrise at Karnak Temple, which is a temple compound because there's many, 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 many temples at Karnak. If you're wondering what Karnak is, it is literally the place where you see the pillars. It's like a forest of pillars that you're walking through with the hieroglyphics all over it. That's Karnak. Oh, we also did the Egyptian Museum the first day. God, there's so many things we did. We did the Egyptian Museum the first day too.
Well, and the thing to notice about that before we get into Karnak was there was
Yeah.
this amazing room that Hani pointed out for us because we said we wanted everybody to be able to connect with a deity to see what messages they would get throughout the week from them. And he was like,
Hmm.
I know the perfect room. He took us to this room that nobody else was in, and it was statues of literally every Egyptian embodiment of a neter, nature, which is synonymous for deity, that you could imagine. And everybody, we got to say, like, see which one you're drawn to, see who it is, and see how you connect with them for the rest of the trip. And Hani took note of who everybody was working with. So every time
Hmm.
there was an opportunity throughout the week, he would be like, those of you working with Sekhmet, this. Those of you working with Osiris, here, this. Those of you working with Hathor, this. So he was so involved
Yeah.
in every aspect. And he was even like, my name is Hani, and I'm working with this deity this week. And it was so
Yeah.
cool.
It was amazing. And I will say that that was the start of like many revelations for me, which I'll probably get into in like a longer YouTube video because it was like an
Hit me,
experience.
Mel.
Basically, the very base level, I kind of figured out why I thought I was being held like a baby. Like Thoth was holding me like a baby. Like he was holding me not like cradling, but like hands out, like holding, like supporting head, supporting butt every time I went to channel and talk to him. And I was very frustrated by this. Like, why am I being held like this? And he was just like, wouldn't tell me because he doesn't talk very often. But then there was like an explanation of that. And I like turned to Krista in that room. And I'm like,
And I was just like, wait, what's going on? Oh my God. And then we just like flitted around the room looking for more evidence. And Thoth was actually talking to me for you
"Mhm."
on that. And I feel like there was some really interesting clarity that came through for that. Yeah.
Very interesting clarity, which was amazing. And it was only like part one of like my 3-step understanding of both that occurred on this trip. Also, if you want that experience, that's what we show you in Deity Academy is like what we're going to be
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
We still have a
Basically it.
couple spots left, not a lot. We're almost out of spots on Deity Academy.
I think it was like,
So I think even less than that. I think we were at like 6 or something.
yeah.
But if you want to be part of Deity Academy, hop on that train real quick. Because you'll get to see how we channel for each other in real time and channel the deities in real time. And it's pretty cool, in my opinion. Um, but that really happened at Karnak too. Karnak
Yeah.
was one of the most activating experiences for almost everyone on the trip. Like we had people walk in and just start sobbing at Karnak. We had people basically go and see like a sacred thing kind of behind the scenes on accident and have the person who showed them that start crying and they're crying and then they have like this beautiful healing experience together of like inner child stuff. I mean, we had people there's this manifestation thing you do at Karnak where you walk around this scarab beetle and that manifestation was coming through for people almost immediately upon
Yeah.
leaving. It was wild.
Just doing the walk around because you have to go counterclockwise around the scarab. And so we did it as a group. And by this, you're supposed to do it 7 times. And by the second time around, it felt like when you make a whirlpool when you're swimming and you
Hmm.
go around and the water starts carrying you instead. That's what it felt like. Like we were
It
just
did.
being kind of pulled along around. It was so cool. I've not
And
felt it.
Hani was like, I've done this for like 4 or 5 different things and they've always come true. And we're
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
wow. So, okay. And then, so that was amazing. Krista, Weston, and I kind of got escorted to another kind of like secret-ish area,
Yeah.
which we had actually been kind of preparing for. And Hani took us to, and it was very secret. We had to bribe some people and hide.
Yeah, we had to hide. When they said they put us in a room, first of all, with a certain statue, and they were like, okay, 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, we only have 10 minutes. And then it turned out it was like, no, we're hiding you from people. Stay in here for 10 minutes. It's like, oh, right. Here of all places.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It was far out there. We were like walking a while to get there, and Hani was just like, this way, and like bring us along. We're like, okay. And it was definitely like it had to be just kind of the three of us. It was also like it had the potential of like wrecking your shit
yeah.
genuinely or
Mhm.
helping you realize stuff. And it was wild. And that was incredibly activating for three of us, which I think we haven't fully digested yet enough to like really speak on in a
Mm.
lot of ways. We didn't even really talk about it a lot on the trip with everyone because we are all just kind of like, whoa. And then he took us to like another one of the same, like hit us to get to another location, basically, also at Karnak still. We're still at Karnak and had another very profound experience with that. And then at the end of it, they gave us this like fresh basil, which is growing everywhere naturally. It's like a weed to
Yeah.
smell and it like grounded everything in. And it was to say it was life changing and activating is such a deep understatement of just that experience alone.
Yeah, you come to realize something about yourself in a way that you no longer can question it, not even just because there were people there to witness it. Like, it was so cool to me to be in that situation with you and with Weston because you guys also witnessed it. You know, I've done things like that when I was there before with my mom and my dad and whatever, and there was some validation to that, but to have someone on the same intuitive wavelength, be like, no, I saw this too. I acknowledge. We got to hang out for like an hour or so on the balcony at the other hotel and just
Mhm.
be our soul selves for a second, which was so necessary. But again, this experience sort of peeled away the stuff that we put on in order to like almost masquerade through life. And
Yeah.
we got to take off that energy and just be us in that moment. And that was huge. And to have someone witness that moment with you so that they know, it's like that whole "I see you" kind of
Mhm.
thing, irreplaceable.
Irreplaceable and so validating and so like I'm so thankful for our friendship because it's so incredibly unique in that way and it's amazing and our hotel in Luxor was really amazing. Luxor in general was just perfect energy for all of this. And so we did Karnak, we went to the hotel, we relaxed, and then we did Luxor Temple in the evening.
Yeah.
Um, which was very funny because it was very calming as opposed to Karnak where it was like activating all this stuff and Luxor was like, would you like to take a nice little stroll through me? Like it was just very like relaxing and you walk through it and super interesting. Kind of got more information about the Thoth stuff via Karnak and via Luxor. But also Luxor has like Roman built parts, which I could feel like immediately upon walking in. And Lacosta started chattering about how she'd been there before and it used to be way more noisy because for a while they used it as like market stalls in the Roman Empire days. I was like, "Oh, that's fascinating. Like, thank you for telling me that." Then like we were um who was it that was protecting us? It was like a womanish energy in that one room.
Mm, yeah.
So we did the activation in like the sanctuary that's like in the middle of the temple, which has a vortex. Like it has a very, very clear vortex. So we did an activation and I pulled some energy up and just wrapped it around all of us. And then there was, I think it was you. You were in that room with me when the guy got shoved out, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was you and a couple other of us, and we were like walking aside and we're like, oh, there's definitely like a female presence in here. And there was like they were like hustlers walking around trying to get us to take pictures with them, and then they'd make us pay them money, that kind of thing. We were just ignoring them. But there was one that was like incessant, and he tried to follow us into that room. And the female energy in there just like full-handed shoved him out, like, "Woo," and we were like, well, thank you. And he just and like ran out of the room. And we were like, thank you. Like, nice.
Yeah, the acknowledgement that everybody had who worked there or lived there, like they
Mhm.
knew there was
Yeah.
something there. And so like when something interacted with them, they responded. And it was
Yeah.
like a hard no. They respected that.
Yeah.
And to be protected by those energies felt really incredible.
Mm,
Um,
really cool and felt very blessed. And it was a very neat experience for all
Mhm.
of us. And then the next day was the actual equinox, and we went on the hot air balloon, which was so quiet and peaceful. And you could see Ramses the Second Temple, the Colossi of Memnon, the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, Hatshepsut's temple, like all sorts of stuff. It was really, really cool. And then immediately, once our balloon landed, which was like in a field,
Yeah.
like in a field of alfalfa, which was really cool. By the way, it was like, was it Magic Balloons? It was
Yeah,
Magic Balloons
it was something
Company.
magic something, yeah.
hmm We were like, okay, thank
Mhm.
you. And then we immediately got like whisked away to Hatshepsut's temple. Oh no, we went to the Valley of the Kings first.
Yes.
Yes. We got whisked away to the Valley of the Kings, which was a really cool experience to be in those tombs and spaces and feel the different energy that that pharaoh had cultivated for their tomb space. And we went into three different ones. A couple of people went into more, but we went into three, and the energy was distinct and different in each one. And it was kind of like you were bathed in it. And it was like, this was the intention of like, they made this for themselves. This is how they wanted to feel in burial. And it was really cool to like have that emotional communication with people who died thousands of years ago. It was neat. That was a
Yeah,
neat
and
experience.
people had certain activations in there because there were these entities in one of the temples
Mhm.
or one of the burial places in particular. And I remember one of our travelers, Katie, was down there, and I was like, Katie, what do you see in there? Because she was like, oh, hey. And I was like, you see him too. Cool. What are you seeing?
Mhm.
And so I was asking her questions because they ended up being the same responses that I would have had. And
Mhm.
I was like, what are they saying to you? And it was the same people that I had mentioned, I saw in the pyramid the last time I was here, where they appeared to be made out of glass. They look blue from a distance, but you get closer and they're actually clear and almost made
Mhm.
out of glass. And their intention when I had asked them then of like, what do you do, was we make people better. And sometimes that means healing them. And
Mhm.
so Katie was like, but I feel like they make people better. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. And you could just feel them tending to
Mhm.
something going on in there. Um,
Mhm.
really,
And
really
by the way, like all of the tombs we went into, with the exception of like people who chose to go to Tutankhamun's tomb, which was mostly none of us.
mhm,
I think there was like 4 or 5 of us that went to do that. Is they those tombs were we got to see like a maybe
yeah,
10% of them. Like they went so much deeper. And there was one especially I was like, this one goes real deep. Like
yeah,
I feel it going way deep down in there. So we just got to see like whole rooms, maybe. It was a lot
like
of
an
fun.
antechamber kind of thing.
But it was really cool. And then we went to Hatshepsut's temple, which was one of my favorite parts of the entire trip. It was amazing to see the differences that a woman pharaoh built versus men pharaohs. All like we had not seen there was in Luxor was the first time when there was naked women
Mhm.
on the walls, which was interesting. But then when we got to Hatshepsut's temple, no other place had I seen a woman giving birth or pregnant women on the walls, and there were multiple of that
Yeah,
in the sanctuary for Amen, the god Amen.
yeah.
And that was really fucking cool.
Well, and the fact that there were 3 sanctuaries, one for
Mhm.
Anubis, one for Hathor, and one for Amun, and
Mhm.
Hani, of course, coming in clutch was like, "This is your final temple that we're visiting. These are the different things, and they form a triangle, and there's a center." And I was like, "Guys, pull out your crystals and activate them in the different sanctuaries." And he was like, "This is where you do it," and kind of like helping us to not get busted for doing magic, which was really cool.
And it
Um,
was felt so different and it felt so different. And the spot that was the middle of the triangle was actually between these two granite gates. The rest of the building was limestone, but there was these two granite gates that like led into one of the sanctuaries. And like the spot in the middle was like in the middle of those two gates. And that was really powerful.
Yeah, and then the whole time, Hani kept saying, my queen."
Mhm.
Like he really respected what he best 20 years in the history of Egypt, uh,
Mhm.
all those things. And I know one of our travelers, Nikki, had a really great experience with Hatshepsut and was
Yeah.
able to say, like, you are still known as the best 20 years in the history of Egypt, and kind of gave that validation back to Hatshepsut, which must have
Mhm.
been incredible. Not an
Right.
experience I was able to have, but Nikki shared it, and it was just like, dang, to be able to tell
Mhm.
them is really
Yeah.
neat.
Really, really cool. And I will say we all walked up and like 4 of us were standing in a row and we looked at the mountain behind the temple and we're like, that used to be carved. And I could
Yeah,
see it clearly on top of the stone that's there. Like you could clearly see, which you can't with your physical eyes, but with spiritual eyes, it was like, oh, that used to be a rows of statues of the gods. And then we asked Hani and he's like, yeah, we think it probably was. Like we
yeah,
don't know for sure, but we think it probably was. And I was like, I can attest, I know for sure. That was. Which was really neat. And there was all these very feminine protectors of temple and like curators of that temple. And I was talking to them and they were really upset the roof was gone and that it was sunny and hot and that bothered them a lot because it was melting their artwork.
mhm.
And they really, really hated the people that were hustling at the temple.
They were
Really,
hot,
really
yeah.
bad. They were really bad at that temple. And I was standing in the middle of the three. I'm standing there and I'm holding like my necklace and sitting there to activate it for a second. And like 3 of the hustler people start to approach me and I was so done with them at that point. And I felt the female guardians like surround the space. And I just turned to one and I was like, no. And they like shoved them outward. And the guys all turned around and walked away. And a couple of the travelers were like watching me. They're like, whoa. Like it wasn't me. I just said no. But like,
Yeah,
it was really, it
yeah.
was, it was a cool, I really loved that temple very much so. It was special. And then we had a farewell dinner that was special. And Honey got a cake for one of our travelers who was going to be their birthday.
Yeah.
And they made it like in-house. And this thing, thought it was like going to be like a slice of cake when he told us about it. This thing could have served like 50 people. It was huge and handmade, and one half was chocolate, one half was fruit. Like it was
And it was
so
delicious. It was
beautiful.
so light. Like it was almost
Yeah.
angel food cake. It was
Yeah.
so
Right. And we were having this rooftop dinner watching the sunset over the alley of the Sphinxes on the Nile. It was like, and that night we had a boat ride too on the Nile. It was just really, really, really special in that way. And we journeyed back the next day and went to the bazaar, which was tons of limiting belief work that everyone got to do together. Of like, you guess what? Have to haggle. You have to
yeah,
haggle. You have to
have
be
to
rude
stand
about it.
back
You
and
have to
be the
actually be
winner.
aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people really got to stand in the power they've been accumulating the entire trip to do that experience. And that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. And he kept emphasizing, Hani instructed us on how to haggle and said, you're not being rude to these people. You're not, Hani would have told us if we were doing
Hmm.
something inappropriate. And he was like, no, even I have to haggle. It's expected. And
We
so
got
it's,
to watch him haggle, and it was a
no,
journey.
a different side of Hani. Um,
Uh-huh.
and, we got to, part of me feels bad about when we were walking back to the bus as a kid. But we got to see and experience a lot of what it's like to sort of be there um,
Yeah.
and
I was
stuff.
this kid who's approaching one of our travelers, just like begging for money, basically, and
And
kind
she had
of in a
already given him
manipulative.
some, and he had
Yeah.
seen he had more in her wallet, and he was asking
Mhm.
for all of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, and like maybe I'll give him more." And Krista like immediately like bodies in between the two of them and just like butt defends this kid from coming at our traveler. And I'm walking behind them and I'm just like narrate. I forget who I was narrating it to, but I was like, "Oh, Krista turns the corner. Oh, Krista with a nice defense on the right." Just narrating because it was so funny.
He was like in her space, and I felt like it wasn't a pure energy of like need meets
Yeah.
providing. So eventually I took the traveler up to stand next to Hani because
Yeah.
Hani would be the one to make the call of yes, give more, or no, this is someone asking too much. And the person did leave when I moved her up
It was,
there. So
it was really funny though.
I wish I would have heard you. I probably would have lost it.
Oh, it was so
Yeah.
funny. Oh, it
I
was great.
forgot to
So,
catch myself before going protector mode.
right. And honestly, that is like not even the whole trip. Like that's like a very basic summation of what we did, but every day was so deep and revolutionary and magical. And yeah, we're so grateful. And we promised we'd share it all with you. So that's what we're doing is we're sharing it all with you. And we also wanted to just say we have 3 spots left on the Japan trip to make the trip happen in this Trova style.
More people
Um,
can sign up, but the next 3 people will get a discount.
yeah, you'll get a
Message
discount
us.
and that will lock us in to actually do the trip in the Trova way, which is this way. This trip, the trip in Japan is going to be, you're going to figure out your higher self. We're going to focus on higher self very, very heavily. We're going to focus on your soul nature, your soul typing. We're going to focus on communicating with spirits in nature and how those, like the balance of body, your earthly body and your spiritual self. And it's going to be just as revolutionary and magical and intense and beautiful as this Egypt trip was, truly. So if your heart speaks to it, we really would encourage you to go. It's going to be really, really powerful and profound, and we really would like you to go.
If you're
It's going
willing,
to be
if you're feeling ready to break the limiting beliefs of like I'm unworthy or I can't love myself, those
amazing.
are going to go away on this
Hmm.
one.
Completely.
Knowing the itinerary we have, we're going to be visiting several shrines. We're going to be taking part in a traditional tea ceremony. It is also a food tour, so we're going to get to experience the cuisine, which I'm stoked about. I love their food over there. And
Yeah.
also, we're going to have each other. And the great things about these trips is you don't feel like you're on a tour with a bunch of people. You feel like you're with family who sees you. The biggest thing going on in our group chat, which we are continuing to engage in right now with everybody from Egypt and Ireland and Greece, and we will for Japan as well, is they're coming home and they're realizing, the authenticity you get to have in that group of people. It doesn't matter where in the world we had each other and
Hmm.
we continue to have each other. That does not go away. That's something that is priceless and you do not have to leave behind when you come home. And I'm just, again, so grateful.
And like one of the shrines we go to, we get to drink from like a stream to manifest a specific thing in that they've been using for thousands of years. And If you want to travel to a country where you don't speak the language, and I mean this with my whole heart, doing it within a trip like this is genuine, and I've traveled a lot, is genuinely the best way to do it. And it's the same price. If you're doing this by yourself versus doing it with us, it's literally going to be the same cost, but you're also going to have a guide, you're going to have meals provided, like you're going to have all these different things that come into it for the same investment. So if you've ever wanted to go to Japan and you're thinking about it and you're, maybe it would be a solo travel thing for you, something in this way, like it will be once in a lifetime. It will be life changing. I promise.
Yeah.
Like,
And if you are a solo traveler, do not let that stop you. We had several solo travelers, myself included, going to
mhm.
Egypt this time. The only time I felt uncomfortable was when I was leaving the airport to get the 5 minutes to my hotel when a bunch of people were trying to make me take their taxi cabs at midnight. But I was on the phone with my husband the whole time. I had support. Everybody was actually super nice as soon as I got into the hotel. Japan is going to be even more so. I've never felt in my life, I've never felt so safe as a neurodivergent person and as a person who does hold some trauma, I have never felt as safe as I did in Japan. Never in the whole world. It is such an amazing, incredible energy, and the people there are amazing and wonderful.
And we're going to get to experience it in a way that otherwise we wouldn't, because we will have the guide, we'll have this deep understanding and cultural knowledge and connect with local people. And
And we'll be tailoring the trip to spirituality. So you're going to get a once in a lifetime experience with that.
yeah, like deeply tailoring it towards spirituality and what we actually want to get from it, as a group. And you will come back changed in the best possible way and prepared for this next chapter of your life. And I'm not saying that in any way, like, over exaggerating or anything. It's truly what's going to happen. And that's in August. So if you want to join us, don't wait. We're about to close the trip here pretty soon. And we want to be able to get to go in this trove of capacity with all of you. So,
We already
um,
have several people signed up who are excited to go, and I want them to be able to, they are incredible people. So
mhm.
you already have a group of people waiting for you, excited to
It's going to
embrace you.
be the best.
Mhm.
So please, we just encourage that so much. We really would love to do it this way with you, and it's going to be magical. And we can't wait. Also, we go to Italy in like 4 weeks, which is really exciting. We're not selling that trip anymore. That trip is closed at this point, but we get to share all about the channeled history in that space as well, which is so exciting. Also, we wanted to just mention next week we are going to do a really deep dive on the eclipse that's coming up. It is not doom and gloom scary the way that social media is making it. Please take a breath and do not absorb the limiting beliefs that people are trying to throw at you about this.
I have been seeing so much from, I'm going to say quote unquote astrologers, people who are using astrology,
Mhm,
people who are using astrology. Um, But as someone who has studied, I literally got a copy of the earliest texts earlier than Valens. I received a
mhm.
copy today of the earliest texts we have. I'm about to dive into them. Like literally, as soon as I get off this call, I'm reading Nichepso and Pedosiris. I can't wait. But anyway, um, I've seen a lot of people talking about it in a very social media way. Um, we're going to give you exactly what the texts say. We're going to interpret it in a way that's relevant to our time, to our scenarios. And we're going to say, for as much control as you have, here's how you can gracefully navigate this energy. And here's when you can expect it. Because by transit, sure, it's happening on April 8th. By timing, it is not going to begin April 8th. So I will give you that information as well. I'm peer
Yeah,
reviewing it this week.
yeah. So we're going to talk about the next week as well as our bookend episode, for this month, because we know this is technically the last episode of this month, but we're going to bookend it next week, because we want to talk about the books we read
Yeah.
more in depth. Um, they need some diving into. It will be spoilery. Just going to throw that out there. Next
Yeah.
week's bookend will be spoilery as heck. So if you're
But the
into
book's
that,
been out for
awesome.
multiple years. So
Yeah. If you're into that, awesome. If you're not into that, just we will announce when it is our bookish portion and you can scoop, and then you won't be
you can
spoiled.
come back after you've read it and see if you agree.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much. We are so excited to get to share this with all of you. You are incredible. You allow us to do these wonderful, incredible things and take people on these incredible journeys. This space is sacred to us, and we honor and treasure it with everything that we are. And I mean that so, so deeply.
Yeah, we vow to bring our integrity to every single thing that we do. The fact that you create enough space for us to be able to do this, the time and the ability to make these things for you, we will make them for you. We will make them
Mhm.
magical. We will make them immersive. We will make them everything that you would hope for, and hopefully more. Hopefully we can exceed your expectations. I know that that is something I'm committed to. And I know that you are of the same mind in that. We're
Mhm.
here and we are all in. And it's definitely an incredible thing.
Yeah. So thank you all.
Yeah,
You're all
thanks.
amazing. We appreciate you. And we hope that you embrace the energy that's happening right now and you go make some
The
magic.
magic. It was perfect on my end, but I miss being in person with you because
Get it on the bus going to Hatshepsut's temple, and it was great then.
yeah, remember that. Remember us that way.